3, 2, 1. Happy New Year!
The year is 2003. The Terminator just became the governor of California. Harry Potter is on book 5. Apple just debuted iTunes. An 18-year-old LeBron James is getting ready for the NBA draft. And Michael Jordan is appearing in his final All-Star game. The 2003 NBA All-Star Game stands out as one of the most star-studded events in NBA history, boasting an unparalleled blend of talent and personality. The Western Conference All-Stars featured a formidable lineup of starters including Steve Francis, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and Yao Ming. On the Eastern Conference side, the All-Star roster boasted more legends like Allen Iverson, Michael Jordan, Tracy McGrady, Jermaine O'Neal, and Ben Wallace as the starters. There are several features of the 2003 NBA All-Star Game that made it especially memorable. I mean, we could start with the jerseys. This event marked the resurgence of NBA-designed All-Star Game jerseys, breaking a trend that had lasted since the 90s. In the 5 preceding years, players simply wore their own team jerseys during the All-Star Game. The new jerseys brought a wave of freshness, drawing inspiration from the retro designs of the late 80s All-Star Game jerseys, however opting for a looser fit, a key characteristic of the early 2000s. The spotlight of All-Star Weekend was undeniably on Michael Jordan, who was gearing up to retire for the third and final time. Despite some controversy surrounding his selection, Jordan secured a starting spot and marked his 14th All-Star appearance. However, technically the Eastern Conference's starting backcourt was supposed to be Allen Iverson and Vince Carter, both immensely popular players in 2003, but they faced a dilemma. Vince Carter, who had missed significant games due to injury that season, was pressured to yield his starting position to Michael Jordan, but despite some initial resistance, Carter eventually agreed, giving up his spot to his UNC predecessor just before tip-off. Another intriguing aspect of the onset was Michael Jordan's coach for the game, Isaiah Thomas, widely regarded as Jordan's most prominent rival and perhaps his greatest adversary. If MJ had a sworn enemy, it was Zeke. However, Thomas had earned the coaching role for the night by guiding the Pacers to the best record in the Eastern Conference leading up to the All-Star break. The first quarter saw a relatively competitive defensive showing from both teams, especially compared to the modern All-Star game, with the East closing out the quarter with a 23-18 lead thanks to a 13-0 scoring run. As the game progressed, the pace and intensity notably increased, although defensive efforts waned once the reserves entered the game in the second quarter. The unmistakable flair of playground, streetball-style basketball permeated every aspect of the match, bringing a thrilling energy to the contest. As per tradition, the fourth quarter proved to be more intense than the preceding periods. While Shaq dominated the minutes reserved for substitutes, most of the Eastern Conference starters remained on the court, even as the fourth quarter commenced. Playing time was far from evenly spread, Isaiah Thomas opting to favor playing starters, with some bench all-stars getting as low as 4 minutes played for the entirety of the game. Michael Jordan, renowned as one of the most clutch players in NBA history, if not the most clutch, had clinched numerous victories and championships with his exceptional shot-making prowess in crucial moments. With just 10.1 seconds left, and the score tied at 120, and a young Shawn Marion guarding him as overtime loomed, Jordan found himself in complete isolation. Initiating a post-up, he executed his trademark turnaround jumper after a few dribbles in the mid-post, but the shot missed, leading the game to overtime. This was just the 6th occurrence of such an extension in All-Star Game history. But MJ would redeem himself in the first overtime, where he again possessed the ball with the game on the line. Again, with 10 seconds left on the clock, Jordan went to another patented move, going for a right shoulder fadeaway that brought fans back to a glimpse of history.
Overtime, and Michael has the ball, again guarded by Shawn Marion. The fadeaway, yes! With 4 and 8/10 seconds.
And while it seemed like for a moment the 03 All-Star Game would have a storybook finish, unfortunately for the East, Jermaine O'Neal would foul Kobe, sending him to the free throw line and the game into another overtime. The 2003 All-Star Game represented a blend of entertainment and competitiveness. The players were true showmen, but didn't compromise their defensive integrity. The game featured 37 personal fouls. Compare that to the most recent All-Star Game, where the East and West teams combined for 3 total personal fouls. For the past few years, an annual discussion picks up following the All-Star Game, but quickly dissolves as the season picks back up. The conversation revolves around the question, how do we fix the All-Star Game? The discussion then turns to incentives for players like additional money, rewarding the team's choice of charity, and some have suggested following the MLB's incentive, giving the winning team guaranteed home court advantage in the NBA Finals. The thing is, the buzz leading up to Sunday night's NBA All-Star Game revolved around efforts to enhance the game's competitiveness. Following the league's lowest rating All-Star Game on record in 2023, which garnered a 2.2 rating and just 4.5 million viewers, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver responded to the widespread criticism of the event with a series of proactive changes. The player draft, accompanied by lengthy introductions and a prolonged halftime show, was shelved in favor of reverting to the traditional East-West format, with a renewed emphasis on a return to basketball, as Silver called it. But even with this focus, fans were treated to one of the least competitive games of all time. I mean, a final score of 211 to 186 in 4 quarters is just ridiculous.
And Dame shooting from half court.
As well, his second half-court shot of the game.
Stop it.
Now, the All-Star Game has always been a part of a break for the players, and players have never given playoff-like effort, but it seems to be getting increasingly less competitive. However, it really wasn't that long ago that All-Star Weekend featured one of the greatest, most intense games in its history. During a timeless quarter on All-Star Sunday night, 10 of the globe's premier athletes endured tense possession after tense possession. They absorbed charges, engaged in disputes with referees, leaped for blocks, and dove for loose balls, while Team LeBron emerged victorious on the scoreboard with a 157-155 win over Team Giannis. The true triumph was witnessed by the All-Star Game itself. Revitalized with a vigor not experienced in quite some time, the audience and players had to quickly grasp new regulations that year. Each of the initial 3 quarters featured a score reset, with the winner of each quarter securing $100,000 for a designated charity. Then, the 4th quarter implemented a variation of the Elam ending. The scores from the first 3 quarters were tallied, the game clock was deactivated, and the teams aimed for a target score, set at 24 points higher in tribute to the recently passed Kobe Bryant than the leading team's score at the start of the frame. So, with Team Giannis leading 133 to 124 after the 3rd quarter, the teams directed their efforts to reaching 157 points, but reaching the target wasn't a straightforward task. In stark contrast to the swift, seamless possessions witnessed earlier in the game, the 4th quarter experienced both teams scrapping their way to the target score, basket by strenuous basket. A comparison of the stats from the 4th quarter to those of the preceding 3 quarters reveals a starkly different style of play, less efficient offense, an increase in blocks and fouls, and a higher number of turnovers compared to assists. To add to the playoff feel, throughout the entirety of the 4th quarter, Nick Nurse, the coach of Team Giannis, maintained a consistent lineup. 4 starters consisting of Giannis, Joel Embiid, Pascal Siakam, and Kemba Walker, with Kyle Lowry stepping in for Trae Young. Meanwhile, the Team LeBron squad deployed its closing lineup early in the 4th quarter, and opted not to make any substitutions thereafter. LeBron James was joined on the court by fellow starters Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, and James Harden, with Chris Paul stepping in for Luka Doncic to create a cohesive unit of 5 seasoned veterans. Similar to Team USA in the Olympics, where the choice of closing players reflects an honest assessment of their standing within the sport's hierarchy, these concluding lineup decisions shed light on the perceived status of the league's top stars. And for Team Giannis, their captain stepped up specifically on the defensive end. Coach Nurse later revealed that Giannis requested specific defensive matchups down the stretch, and he certainly delivered in those moments, contesting shots on both LeBron and AD throughout the 4th. and in the closing moments, he blocked a LeBron layup that was initially ruled a goaltend, but was overturned after replay review. Yes, this was an all-star game with late-game defense and reviewed plays. But the finale of the game was somewhat anticlimactic, especially in the moment. The intense battle ended on Anthony Davis free throws after a Kyle Lowry foul. But looking back, those free throw attempts almost represent the nature of the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter alone featured 21 personal fouls, in part a symbol of the effort players made during that quarter. While the game ending in a free throw sparked some controversy, the Elam ending was ultimately successful that year. As a basketball experiment, the fourth quarter appeared to operate in a different realm altogether, devoid of a game clock, almost devoid of substitutions, and it was even free from interruptions by TV timeouts. Initially, the quarter assumed an almost surreal nature for an all-star game because it actually resembled competitive NBA basketball. However, the atmosphere quickly became familiar, transforming into a wildly entertaining spectacle. Exhaustion gripped the players while the fans showed no signs of letting up. The United Center fostered intense unity. While all-star games will never have the start-to-end passion of playoff basketball, history teaches that with the right storyline, the right rules, and a close enough contest, the NBA All-Star Game can be electric. Thanks for watching Basketball Pantheon.